Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today for the InterTalk webinar, The Power of WYSIWYG in Enlite Cloud Ready Dispatch. Just to give you a few different just kind of house cleaning things here. Just as you see, we're going to wait until the end of the webinar today to do a question and answer period. And you have a couple tools to help you do that here. So one thing I was just going to point out was as we go through the presentation today, you should see either at the top of your screen or at the bottom a little Q&A bubble. In there, you should be able to ask any questions as we go through the presentation, and I will look at those at the end during our Q&A period. Also, when we hit the Q&A period, you'll be able to actually raise your hand as well. And if you would rather just ask a question through there, we can get that going there too. So I'll be able to allow you to talk on my end. But just thank you for joining us today. Let's just get right into it. My name is Nick Blackmore. I've been a sales and marketing coordinator with InterTalk for the last 2 years, pretty much. I have a marketing profession background. I've worked with both of our console systems, both InterTalk DCS, Dispatch Console System, and Enlite Cloud Ready Dispatch. And today we're focusing on a feature that has been built into Enlite Cloud Ready Dispatch that allows you to essentially form your screen for a dispatcher fairly easily using the principles of WYSIWYG, which stands for what you see is what you get. But to start off, just a little bit of background on Enlite as a whole. It was originally released in 2021 as a pretty much a cloud-only platform. So it was hosted in either AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. And through there, you'd be able to access that. Since then, we've changed our deployment options. So we've expanded out from just the cloud, as we did get some feedback from customers in regards to cloud-only services, and has expanded to be essentially what you want it to be. So it's very flexible in the way it can be deployed. You can choose to have it deployed in the cloud as a public safety grade console system that is browser based. You can also have it deployed on premises, air gapped, which is more of a standard feature for what we see in public safety. And then a hybrid of the two. Essentially, it's whatever you want, we can do, and it's a flexible console system. And I think what you'll see today is just how easy and attainable and how small of a proficiency you need to actually be able to go in there and design a screen for a dispatcher, supervisor, or admin. So without further ado, I'm just going to go over just our itinerary for today. So today's agenda is essentially we're going to start off with what is WYSIWYG? What is what you see is what you get? Included in this, we're just going to do a very brief InterTalk introduction just so that you can know a little bit about us and what we do. We're going to go over how WYSIWYG is actually used and then what it is as well. We're also going to look into the benefits of WYSIWYG. So that includes things like the visual building of the graphic user interface. We're going to go over just the ease of use. And then, like I said before, the minimal training to proficiency. As a marketing professional, I have become very used to the tools over the years in regards to just dragging and dropping elements on a screen. It's something I'm very used to with like Adobe products. But we'll also look into other products that have highlighted the use of that. And then also, of course, at the end, we're going to be doing the big thing, the Enlite mission building demo. So we're going to give a high-level user experience overview and login process going into Enlite Cloud Ready Dispatch. We're just going to build a basic mission to start off with, just someone that includes radio widgets, different types of transmit buttons, a very unique feature to Enlite called web frames, which allows you to pull in different videos and things from IP, as well as the instant recall recorder, which is actually one of my favorite parts of Enlite. And I will highlight that a bit more as we go through. And then to top it all off, we'll end off just kind of going through a couple different pre-made missions that I've created just to highlight the versatility of the product as well. And then at the end, I left a few minutes there for a Q&A session. We might be able to give you back a bit of time. If we do go over for any reason, you will be receiving at the end of this a recording of the webinar as well as a form to ask any additional questions if for some reason we didn't get to something. I will say I am not a technical professional, so if we do hit a question that I might not know the answer to, I will be honest with you and I will seek out the answer and get back to you on that if need be. But let's get right into it here today. So just to give you a bit of company background about InterTalk, we're a privately owned and operated company. We're not beholden to any shareholders. And what that essentially means is that we've been able to act and respond to our customers' feedback pretty efficiently, been able to tailor our system to the needs of our customers and potential customers as well in the future. We have been established since 1997 as a systems integrator. InterTalk originally started as Pantel International as a systems integrator, and we have evolved into a manufacturer of dispatch console systems that are in use all throughout North America, the United States, and Canada. Currently, right now, we do have around 55 to 60 full-time employees, with 70% of that staff comprising of engineering, development, and technical positions. So we're heavy on the engineering side, and myself and a team of 3 other people pretty much handle the sales sides of things, and do what we can for our customers, and we love what we do. Like I said before, we specialize in critical information systems across multiple market verticals. This includes police, fire, EMS. Obviously, public safety is where we really focus, but we also spread out into utilities, aviation, rail, and government systems as well. So we're in a little bit of everything. You know, when you build a public safety, a lot of that can trickle down into other industries as well. InterTalk originally started in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Canada, where I'm located right now. And we have a system staging facility and a training facility in Sacramento, California, called Scotia Technologies. I just want to highlight our mission statement before we get in here. And I truly believe we do this every day and to the best of our ability. And I'll just read it verbatim here. Our goal is to empower our global community with the right information at the right time in the right format through technology built with excellence, innovation, and heart. We're in this for our families. We're in this because we really, truly believe in our mission. And just like I said before, thank you all for joining today. I know your time is valuable. So let's get right into this. So what is WYSIWYG in accordance with Enlite here? So WYSIWYG is what you see is what you get. Chances are you have already used a program that has been using a WYSIWYG setup for either editing a web page, editing a Word doc, or some type of desktop publishing software. Think of drag and dropping elements onto a screen, and that is what you're building is actually the final product as well. It really eliminates that guesswork, right? So the user sees what they're creating during the process and exactly how that will be output. Just a little bit of fact here is that the first use of WYSIWYG was originally by Xerox in 1974 in their system for the Bravo and Xerox Star. I don't believe the Bravo came out, but the Xerox Star definitely did. And ever since then, it's been evolving and becoming more efficient. And it's been a great tool, especially within Enlite Cloud Ready Dispatch. So how is WYSIWYG used? Like I said, web development is one thing. So if you ever built a web page with any of the newer tools, Squarespace, Shopify, Dreamweaver, and Wix, a lot of these use drag and drop elements that are part of a WYSIWYG editor that's built in to help you see the final product as you're building it. Like I said before, graphic design as well. Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator integrate WYSIWYG principles to create visuals that are true to the final output. And of course, document editing, you know, when you think about just adding a text box to Microsoft Word or Google Docs, lets you format the text and add any kind of multimedia that you might want to add to it that mimics what it would look like for print or online publication. And of course, now, Enlite Dispatch also includes this within its arsenal of tools. So what are some of the benefits of WYSIWYG exactly? Well, like I said, drag and drop interfaces. This is a very intuitive design. Dragging elements onto a mission, which is what we call a mission, is essentially a screen that a dispatcher would use to perform their daily duties. When you're in that process of building it, it's just as easy as clicking on an element and pulling it into the screen. Component customization, you can edit the properties of the different resources on the screen, such as color, font, sizing, with immediate feedback that allows you to see the final product. Responsive design. So a lot of our resources that we have in Enlite are dynamic sizing and scaling, which change depending on how big or how small that you actually want that to be on the screen. Another really core aspect is just the ease of use. So it's user-friendly, having a graphical interface, not having to go in the back end and constantly reset the system to see what your final product might look like, is something that is important to both non-developers and professionals alike. Like I said, I was able to pick this up quite quickly, even with my background in marketing and not so much in the dispatch sector. Collaboration. So it does facilitate better collaboration between the mission creators and the dispatchers as changes are visually communicated within the console itself. And of course, consistency. So a lot of the elements that we have within Enlite are formed to be a consistent look with the ability to adjust, customize as you need, but it keeps the same elements across the various parts of the Enlite Cloud Ready Dispatch application. And this is something I'd really like to hit home on, and something I mentioned a little bit before, but it's just the minimal training requirements to get used to using a WYSIWYG editor. Because like I said, chances are probably a lot of you have already utilized something like this. It's intuitive, it's designed with a low learning curve in mind, so it does make it easy to pick up with very minimal training. Within Enlite, you can have preset templates, as well as you can clone pre-made missions as well. So say you had a mission for a dispatcher or a screen for a role of a dispatcher that was very similar to another, and you just wanted to make some slight changes. Well, all the missions that you can build in Enlite are able to be saved and essentially cloned so that you can copy that over and then make any additional changes as a new mission and send that on to the appropriate roles. Time efficiency. It does reduce the time needed to become productive. Building a mission is quite fast. You'll see that here when we go through our 20 minutes of just using the product itself. And I think you'll really get a good understanding for how that product is used and able to make a screen that will work for a dispatcher's role. And one thing that I really love about Enlite is that it does have an integrated help guide as well. So it's built directly into the console system, updated through markup whenever a new release or an update is done to the console itself. So that's something that you can actually put directly within a mission screen for a dispatcher or say a training mission, or you can access it through one of the menus on the sides. And I'll show you that here as we go through it. So now we're going to get down to the actual Enlite mission building demo. So we're going to do a high-level overview of the user experience, as well as the login process. And then we'll start off with a blank canvas. So essentially a mission that hasn't been created yet. We'll go in, we'll add some resources to the screen, as mentioned before. After that, we'll kind of look at a few of the pre-made missions that we have in the system here as well. And then we'll go right on to the Q&A after that. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here for a moment and switch over to Enlite. Okay. So as I mentioned before, Enlite is a browser-based dispatch console system. So this actually gives us the flexibility to use it on either a desktop PC, an Android tablet, or an Android smartphone. You can bring it right up on your phone and have the same full functionality that you would have in regards to using it on a desktop PC as well, with minimal hardware requirements needed to actually operate it. Essentially, what I say is if you're using a computer built within the last 5 years or so, and it's able to run Chrome, you're going to be able to use Enlite within that system itself. But what you should be seeing right now is actually the Enlite login screen. And this is the same screen that any dispatcher, admin, or supervisor would use to log in. But I'm just going to go right into the console itself. And perfect. So you can see this is what you would actually notice when you first log into Enlite before you've set up any missions for anybody. You have a blank canvas. Just to go over the user experience a little bit here, I wanted to highlight a few different things on the screen. So this button, the Enlite logo in the top left-hand corner, this is the menu that actually accesses all the resources that we're able to pull out and drag and drop onto the mission screen itself. We have things like radios, voters, instant recall recorders, as well as some telephony options, just like phone attendants and phone queues that can be pulled directly into the screen. This section is currently my favorite. It's utilities, and this is where we kind of shine. This is where we'll get into things like web frames, additional user guides, mappings, timers, and clocks, and it's a great tool for designing the mission itself. And as well as I mentioned before, a help guide that's directly built into the console itself here without having to put it directly in the mission screen. Next to that left-hand side menu button, you'll see these are the actual missions that we have created here. So I have one open, obviously it's blank, and we're going to be using this just to build a basic mission within Enlite. And this bar essentially just will keep going. So depending on how many missions you have or how many you have assigned to a particular role, this can essentially just scroll infinitely until you run out of room there. So you won't have to worry about that, as well as most dispatchers would be assigned a few particular missions depending on their role and the possible whatever's going on at that time. So there's lots of room there to have several different missions, and we'll go through that as we use the console itself. On the right-hand top, you can see a button here, almost looks like a soft dial pad. When I click on this, that does bring up a dial pad directly in the console. This is just a place for you to dial out if need be to numbers that you would like to access. Pretty basic functionality there. We also have underneath that is a call queue in the quick access menu. So this is where things like incoming calls, on-hold calls, and previous calls would show up as they come into the console system itself. Next up here is we have a quick access contact menu. So any contacts that are loaded into the system are going to show up within this section, and it's a live filter contact list. So as I search for a name, it instantly starts looking for that and gives you access to user information. So we can see things like activity, tags if there's any associated with them, or notes as well. And you can edit the actual user directly in this section here too, just by clicking on the little pencil, and it gives you access to a whole bunch of different settings that you can edit for users of the console system. Underneath that, we do have our patching set up here, which we'll get a little bit more into once we build out the mission. But this is essentially where we'll activate patches within the console itself between different resources. Underneath that, this is our notifications panel. So this is what will show up any kind of notifications coming from the console, and then allow you to acknowledge them and cancel and move on from them. Underneath that as well, we have our device type. So essentially, this allows you to select and choose where you want your select audio or unselect audio to be routed to. Enlite will automatically choose a default setup depending on the devices on your the device is available on the device that you're using. And underneath that is a really cool tool that I personally like, and this is our connections. So any kind of connection that's coming into the console, such as a radio, is going to be highlighted in here. I'm going to tell you if it's either has a broken configuration, so it's not going to operate properly, or if it's also mission ready. So we see we have a few resources on here that are mission ready, and we're going to get right into it. So first thing that I like to do when I start building one of these screens, I like to just kind of map out where things are going to be going using what we call labels. So I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to go down to my label section. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to edit this. And you get a couple different tools on each widget that you're able to drag and drop into the console. So you can see we have this little edit button, which will allow me to go in and change this. There is a little quick help access on the widget itself. I can choose to delete that right off the screen, or I can also choose to copy it, or actually lock it into place. Some people like to have it so that essentially one mission, there's a few elements that will keep popping between different screens, so that it's always there and always ready to be used. And that allows you to have dynamic content zones that you can change out depending on a certain situation, an emergency, or what have you. So starting off here, I'm going to go in. I'm going to create a section for a couple different radio resources that we're going to have on the screens here. Well, we're going to go radios, and I'm going to center this here. Now I'm going to change the color, something that just stands out a bit better. I think that looks pretty good. And then essentially I'm going to just copy this resource, and I'm going to make a border with it as well. So I'm going to be able to change the border width. That looks good. Make the background totally. There we go. And I'm going to have it with no text and have the similar border color as we had before. Oh, there we go. Let's change that to purple. That is perfect. All right, so I'm going to bring this up here. And I like to do this just because it gives you a visual reference, just kind of highlights the resources that will be on the screen there. So I like that. That looks good. Now let's add a few different radio resources into it as well. So I'm going to go into my settings menu. I'm going to select on radios. So all these radios have programmed into the system before I was using it here. But essentially to get them onto the screen itself, it's actually quite easy. So I want to have, let's say I want TAC 1, TAC 2, and TAC 3. So I'm going to add TAC 1. That looks good. TAC 2. And TAC 3. Now I put in TAC 3 because it's not a resource that is currently available, but I think it's important to show how a radio resource looks when it's not going to be able to be PTT'd on, or if there's any connections coming through. With these, I'm going to resize them a bit here. I like to have the transmit button nice and large on the bottom. And we're going to do the same thing with TAC 2. Kind of highlight them. And TAC 3 as well. Perfect. I try and keep the borders as equal as possible as you're building the screen here too. So what you can see here, I'm just going to exit out of the edit mode. So the radio resource widget, this is the transmit button for the particular resources. So if I wanted to talk on TAC 2, check 1, 2, check. You can see the VU meter acting up there, and we can see TAC 3 just kicked in. So now you see what it looks like when it's fully activated. Just a few elements on this I'd like to point out. Just this button here gives you an actual view of the overall network health of that resource. The little person icon will show you any participants that are attached to that radio resource as well. And next to that, the little backwards clock icon, this is a access to the instant recall recorder for that particular resource. We're going to get a bit more into that in just a moment here, but that just kind of highlights how that works. Being able to access the recordings that you need to, you might need to bring up from a previous transmission that was coming through, and you can fast forward, pause, play, change the volume on the resource, or you can actually download that particular snippet directly from the cloud. So clicking on that will download it in a format that's able to be played in, say, a VLC media player or a Windows media player, depending on the codecs that you have installed. As well as you have the one time, so you can change the rate of playback with that resource within the IRR as well. So I'm pretty happy with that for now. I need a transmit all button, and I also want a transmit select button here too. So I'm going to get those built into the screen, and that's as easy as going to my radio resources and selecting transmit. And this puts a button here for us. And this is pretty much just blank right now. It's not really doing anything. I'm going to go in and edit that button. And I want this button just to highlight and essentially allow me just to PTT to all resources on this particular mission screen. To do that, I'm just going to go down to my little cog here, and I'm going to select the all option. And I want dispatchers to know that's what that button is for. So I'm actually going to incorporate a label and change that to transmit all. And I'm pretty happy with the way that looks there. Matches the other transmit buttons and is highlighted and described. Now, just to kind of highlight the copying feature, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this particular element, and I'm going to bring this one over here, and we're going to edit this to act for just selected resources. So maybe we want TAC 1 and TAC 3, or TAC 1 and TAC 2, and not everybody, but we want to do a simul select. So I'm going to go into my settings for that and change this to selected. And we can see that change that there. And I'm going to say transmit select. And I'm going to change the idle color to something that matches what it looks like when a resource is selected, which is a green color, which I will highlight here in a moment. But that looks really good. I like the way that looks there. Perfect. So moving on, I also want to have some mapping in this one because I want to be able to see where users of the console are at the current time. So I'm going to go in, go down to my utilities options, and I'm going to go to map. So this will bring in a map for me. And I'm going to set this up just over here. And I'm blind as a bat, so I'm going to make that as large as I can there for me. But this will highlight where users are in the console itself, and it's just a great tool to be able to include within Enlite. Next, I want to have our contacts list directly in the console so that it's easy for a dispatcher to highlight who they need to reach out to. We're going to size that up to be about the middle of the screen here. Let's make it a bit smaller. And that looks pretty good, and we'll keep the gapping about the same. And right next to the contact list, I want to have my instant recall recorder as well. So we're going to get the instant recall recorder into the system by going up to radios and selecting IRR widget. And you can have it set up right from the start just for a particular resource, but I personally want to have all of them feeding into it to just show some action on its side. There we go. We got that in here. I'm going to click and drag that over here. And we'll make it a bit bigger. And that's perfect. So you can see it's very similar to the one that we brought up for the individual resource, but now we're getting all of the different elements into one. So you can go through, and it's essentially a history monitor, an activity history that allow you to go back and recall anything that was coming through the console system. Next up, I'm going to add in a clock as well. Scale that up to the size here. It's pretty good. We're going to change it from Atlantic time to, let's go with US Eastern. Go there. And I like the way that looks. Once we exit out, you'll see everything kind of meshes together. So what is the next thing? Now I'm also going to add a web frame, and web frames are really cool. So depending on how you have Enlite deployed, if you're hosted in the cloud with access to the public internet, then you're able to just simply load a website into it. So I'm just going to highlight this here. We'll bring this in. Let's make that larger. And I'm going to add our, there we go. All right, so I'm going to add in a URL. I'm just going to use our website, for example. You can see that pulled the website directly within to the console itself. Cool thing is, though, even if you do have Enlite deployed air-gapped on premises, if you wanted to bring in something like a video feed or a different kind of resource into the mission screen for a dispatcher, it's as simple as just giving us the IP address and getting that in there, and we can point the web frames to actually access that. So it's very flexible on how it is able to operate, and it just helps essentially create a space where you don't need as many screens open, or you don't need as many tools on a dispatcher's desk, depending on what particular role that they have here. So right now, we pretty much looked over everything that we were hoping to add to this mission. And once I click out of the edit mode, everything is currently active. So I'm able to go into the map, zoom out and see any users that are attached to this particular system. It's just me today, able to utilize the instant recall recorder. Click on that just to show some playback.
This clip contains an extended period of silence.
Now, I don't know if you can currently hear that, but the waveform is playing back to me, and everything's coming through loud and clear. There's two different sides to this. There's a side that comes up when any kind of emergency alerts are coming through. I have a particular simulated resource that is currently sending through emergency alerts to the system right here. So you can see them pop up, as well as any just standard transmissions that have might been coming through the system. So a few of them that I've done over here previously. And of course, the radio widgets themselves, so I can transmit on any one of these resources. Check 1, 2. I can transmit on all the resources on the screen, as I set up that button previously. Check 1, 2, check. And I can also select multiple resources on the screen to use my transmit select option. So I'm going to select TAC 3 and TAC 1. Check 1, 2. So you can see it's very intuitive how you go about designing a mission screen, and it's great because you can really design them for the particular role at the time. So this one would be set up for a dispatcher, but let's say you're a supervisor setting up a mission screen for somebody you're training, and you just want them to monitor the particular stuff that's coming through the channels. Well, I don't want them to be able to PTT. So one thing that I would do as a supervisor is I would set this mission up. I would go into my edit layout settings, and I would select the resource and click edit. And I'll go down to my little eyeball here that you can see. And right now we have it set to auto arrange as you scale the resource. But you can essentially either add or remove any of the elements that are within this particular widget. So if I just wanted a dispatcher to be able to monitor as they're training, I could just turn the PTT button off, and that is just a monitoring station, essentially, one that you can't actually do anything with. But it goes as far as just being able to turn off as much stuff as you want or have as much stuff as you want on the screen a single time. If you wanted a mission screen that was just one single large button, there's something you can do. We've seen it come up several times. People just want to have a large button that they can select. Bring that to the front elements. But you could have that set up to just expand out and allow somebody to have several different missions for different things. If you wanted a mission that was just all speed dials, you could do that very easily, and you could rescale those as well. That's essentially a high-level overview of actually building a mission screen within Enlite to give you an idea of how we pull resources out and get them active within the screen itself. One thing that we would do with this, if we were sharing this particular screen with a dispatcher, I would want to save this mission. And I like the name and everything. I think that looks good. I have it set up to record its own transmissions and to allow multiple radios to be selected. I would simply save this mission first. So that one's saved. And then I would go in and I would select to share this mission so that other users would be able to access this and have it into their workflow. And the really cool thing about this, and one that we've seen from customers that have used it previously, is that you can essentially go in and try and mimic your workflows that you previously had. Because I know moving from a dispatch console to another one can be quite a stressful time, especially for a dispatcher. So being able to try and give them an environment that they're used to is very important and helps with the training process as well. But just to give you guys a highlight, we have a few pre-made missions that I created here. So just kind of going over and showing the versatility and just showing a lot more resources on the screen here. So we see we have 8 different radios built into this. Back to those transmit buttons, I have one that's targeted just to go with radios that are on the top side, which I'm calling my group 1. When I click on that, it allows me to PTT on those resources. And then, of course, the transmit all button that we looked at previously. You can add different widgets also, like full screen modes that allow you to switch between full screen, but we're already in there currently right now. And then there's a few really cool supervisory features. So like being able to see which users are logged into the environment, when their session started, when they were last seen, see the actual mission that they're currently working in, as well as just you can press on the little eyeball. With supervisor permissions, you can force log out users within the console itself. If a dispatcher was moving on to a mission that they shouldn't be, you could actually go in, see that, and then force them back to the proper mission that they're supposed to be on with, which is a very cool feature that I do really enjoy. So this is just one particular layout. Like I said, just wanted to highlight the versatility of how you can set these screens up. You can really have it set up in a way that makes sense for your agency, and the sky's the limit in the way when it comes to design. So you can see here I have a couple different telephony contact lists. I have my speed dials brought out here. I set this one up to have a main kind of set up at the bottom that will remain the same, allowing you to do like select PTT and things of that nature. Check 1, 2, check. And just the last pre-main mission highlight here, once that little bar gets out of my way. There we go. Just to show you another layout possibility. So like I said before, my kind of approach to is to always kind of have things boxed in so that you can know where you're going quickly. So radios, telephony, emergency paging, things of that nature. And you can just see how drastically different a lot of these screens look compared to the previous ones. So other than that, that is pretty much a high-level overview of WYSIWYG within Enlite Cloud Ready Dispatch. I know it might be a lot to take in here at one time, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. And I'm going to open it up to a Q&A. So I can see right now we didn't have any questions posted throughout the presentation. But if you do have a question, please feel free to raise your hand, and I'll be able to give you access to talk. And we'll give that just a couple minutes here if anybody has a question during the Q&A. I'll do my best. And of course, if not, then we're just be able to give you back a few minutes of your time here. Like I said before, you will all receive a survey just asking how your experience was today, asking if you do have any additional questions that you might want to have clarified. If you do wish to book a demo, a personal demo to see Enlite in action, feel free to give me a message. My contact information will be in that email that goes out within the next day and a half to you. And you will also receive a recording of today's session so that you could share that with any prospective clients or just in regards to your own interest. But if there is no question, if no one's raising any hands here, I can give you back 7 minutes of your time. So I really appreciate everybody joining me here today. I know this was a quicker webinar, but I think it brings the message home that WYSIWYG is a powerful tool within Enlite. It's something that sets us apart from our competitors in the industry, and it just really is a next step in how you build these screens and just with efficiency and being able to do that quickly. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great remainder of your day. Enjoy your 5 minutes back. Thank you.